A tour of the new website. This is MacVoices. Welcome to MacVoices. This is the talk of the Apple community, and I'm Chuck Joyner. Folks, this is a MacVoices briefing or a tour of the new MacVoices website. I'm not sure if you're a regular visitor to the MacVoices website itself or whether you just primarily interact with us through our various communications channels and the shows themselves, but whatever. I wanted to give you an idea of what you can find when you do visit the MacVoices website, especially since it's been completely redesigned now from the ground up. So let's just get right to it. So before we get started, I probably should say that for those of you listening to the audio-only version of this, you may want to seek out the website itself or the video version of this particular briefing, because we'll be making visual references as the primary thing here. So I'm not sure it'll make for a great listen, but if you want to just listen and then come back later, that's fine too. So this is the new MacVoices website. As I said before, it's been rebuilt from the ground up with a lot of new ideas, but things should be pretty familiar to you as well. I'm doing the tour because of the new additions, and we rearranged a few things, made some changes, one little compromise that we'll talk about in a minute, but to make it more modern, to make it more accessible, to fix some problems that there were with the old website and problems that had developed over time. Mike Potter of Macstock Conference and Expo also is a web consultant. He helped build this. We had a lot of discussions about what should be, what shouldn't be, things that I thought were a good idea that he convinced me were not. If you like the new look of the website, he probably gets 85 to 90% of the credit, because this really was his idea and his design. And then he allowed me to tweak a few things on my own website. But so a big, huge thank you to Mike. And if you have a need for a website, I can tell you Mike is phenomenal to work with. So please go for it and contact him. So this is the website. Probably not a lot of things here that are absolutely brand new, but I will point out a few things. First of all, the menu bars have all been consolidated into basically one. The episodes, this is especially worth noting, were not being used properly by me on the previous website. So we've sort of boiled these down to the main categories of MacVoices shows. And even this right now needs to be updated because we've added some new things. Interviews, which are our usual interviews, obviously. The MacVoices briefings, like this one. Events, which constitute our CES and NAB coverage. Holiday gift guides, which are coming up later this year and are always some of our most popular shows. The MacVoices live shows, which really get broken up into multiple pieces here for the MacVoices feeds and to be released if you're not able to attend live on YouTube at youtube.com/MacVoicesTV. Take Control, because we talked to so many of the Take Control authors about all of their releases, and I still think they are some of the best resources out there for you to learn about Apple's programs as well as a number of other tech topics. TV Plus Talk is one of the two series that I do inside MacVoices. TV Plus Talk with Charlotte Henry, and not yet on the list, but will be as soon as we get some edits made to this. The Vision Pro Focus show that I do with Marty Gentius and Eric Bolden of the Vision Profiles podcast, and updates, the monthly updates that we do each month so that you know what's going on with MacVoices behind the scenes. All the other categories have been pushed back and pretty much eliminated. The magazine, obviously, is MacVoices Magazine. The blog, we'll talk about more here in a second. Live and After Dark are now combined simply because they basically are sort of the same thing, just the published version is for everyone, both live and in the feeds, and the After Dark version is reserved for our patrons and Discord members. To support MacVoices is just that. In fact, I'll click that right now and get this out of the way. As you know, we've been talking about it now for probably the better part of a year, that sponsorships to podcasts have been a real challenge. So that's why asking you to help support the show is so important. And this is another opportunity for me to say thank you to all our Mac Voices patrons who contribute every month through Patreon. Also to the folks who send me an occasional donation through PayPal, they are very much appreciated. But also all the folks who support Mac Voices other ways, writing a review, telling your friends, and clicking the sponsor links. Eventually, this page will be populated out with some affiliate banners and links to services that I get a small commission from. And again, this is a way to support the show without costing you any money. If you click on something and it's a sponsor, great. They know that you've clicked coming from Mac Voices, and I greatly appreciate that. If you purchase something from them, I may get a small commission with no additional cost to you, and that helps defray the cost of producing the show. So there will be more here as this moves along. Contact has been revised so that there's a contact form that will give you a way to get to me that gets flagged automatically as being feedback from Mac Voices. But that does not mean that you're not free to use the chuck@macvoices.com email anytime directly. The only trouble with that is occasionally something will get dumped into spam and I don't find it for a while. And that's on me, but there's just so much spam that comes through. And so this way, if you have a need or desire to contact me quickly and immediately, and you know it will get tagged so it goes right to my inbox, this is the way to do it. And of course, advertising. If you are interested in supporting Mac Voices from a commercial standpoint, this will give you the information on how to contact Backbeat Media and some of the other additional information you might be interested in if you want to become a supporter of the show from an advertising perspective. So we'll go back to the homepage. The current episode, featured episode, will always be here, and it's pretty much self-explanatory except for one thing, and that is you might notice that the audio player feature is no longer shown here. To get to that, you will need to click through to the dedicated show page, and then you will have the audio player here, as well as the option to watch the video, access to all the show notes, and everything else in this particular post. We did this for a couple reasons, not the least of which was design, because this was taking up a fair amount of space on that main page, but also it did not appear that the audio player was being used nearly as much as just simply clicking the video link for visitors to the site. Now, subscribing to the audio podcast feed is absolutely the primary way that most people receive their Mac Voices. But on the website, it just seemed to be not I don't want to disparage it. It just wasn't being used enough. But we also did not want to drop it for those folks who might be in low bandwidth situations and still want to listen to the show. So if you are looking for the player, just click on the page, go to the post, and then you'll be able to listen. The sidebar here is just what I said before about the categories, but also we have the blog entries or blog categories. Same thing applies, as I said earlier. Click through any of these and you will get a listing of all of the shows in that category. Blog categories, I'm going to add some more of these. One of the reasons that we haven't talked about the blog yet. So let's just go back to the blog and tackle that. I had a blog that was a completely separate site previously. And frankly, it was not being updated properly. That's my fault because it was not convenient. And sometimes out of sight, out of mind, and things wouldn't get done for a long time. This way, it's right here as part of my normal publishing process. I see it every time. It's much more accessible, much easier to add a post now than it ever was before. And I especially wanted the blog because I will use it to talk about guest appearances, obviously, but other things that might not deserve a full mention or a full, let's say, Mac Voices briefing, but also things that have nothing to do with Mac Voices, other than the fact that someone has emailed me. Music comes to mind that we mentioned music in passing or something that I've listened to or one of the guests have talked about, and there really was no place to address any of those things or share any of those things. So look for the Mac Voices blog to be a little bit grayer in its tech focus, but hopefully there with plenty of great content for you. You can read the blog just by going here, and reading the blog is not a big deal. It's just, reading the blog. The idea that you will be able to subscribe to the blog was important to me. I'm a big fan of RSS readers because it gives me a curated list that I've curated with the folks and the topics that I want to hear from. And so I would encourage you, if you want to be aware of what gets posted to the blog, please subscribe to it. It is a completely separate subscription from MacVoices, any of the MacVoices feeds. So this is a separate thing that you would do in your RSS reader. But please do it, and that way follow along. You'll be aware of it, and there will be more content. I've tried to restart the blog a couple times. It just was not working on the separate site. On this site, it's working very, very well. Subscribe to the MacVoices blog, but also subscribe to the Dispatch and subscribe to MacVoices magazine. These links will let you do all of that. Of course, the only caveat with the Dispatch is an email newsletter. The magazine is a Flipboard magazine, but there is a web version of that you can see if you are not subscribed or don't use the Flipboard app on iOS or iPadOS. To watch more episodes, if you look at this is a block of 9 shows, the last 9 shows we published. If you hit the little older entries button here, you will get another 9 reloaded, and another 9, and another 9. And this is one of the compromises that I mentioned, that with one thing that we were not able to add. I used to have a WordPress plugin called Clean Archives that was absolutely dynamite because it listed out all of our shows the whole way back to 2005 and beyond. And if you could look at the individual months or years, or you could click expand and it would pop out, much like the Finder in the Mac, and show the individual shows under that month. The unfortunate part is that the developer of that plugin passed away due to an illness a few years ago, and obviously nothing was ever getting updated. And as time moved on, server software now breaks that Clean Archives plugin, at least for MacVoices. So I'm trying to find an alternative. There is one possibility out there that I've located that has not been commercially released yet. I'm trying to find out if there's a way to get my hands on that. If any of you who are web publishers have an archive plugin that you could recommend, I would love that, because it will give much easier access to a lot of the much older content if you have an interest in it. If you're just here for the current stuff, then great, it won't make any difference to you. But it is one compromise on this new site. We're working on finding a new way to give easier access. They're all still there. You just have to do a lot of scrolling, but we'll figure it out sooner or later. Mike insisted that I put my picture on here. I still am not sure that's a great idea, but there it is, along with all of the social media platforms that MacVoices is on. It's become sort of the thing to say, well, this is what I'm active on. Well, I'm not sure I'm really active on anything except perhaps X and Mastodon, and very, very occasionally Facebook. But that said, the MacVoices shows get posted to all of these networks. So if you are on one of those and that's the way you want to connect with MacVoices, please do, because the postings will always be there until I make an announcement or take one of them off the list, or until one of them dies, which that has happened in the past. So please use them. I think that way you make sure you don't miss any MacVoices. The best way always is to subscribe in your podcatcher of choice. Speaking of which, if you scroll the whole way to the bottom, you have the links to some of the favorite podcatching services or software. This footer is at the bottom of every MacVoices page, and that's why the social media icons are as well, so that any page on the site, you can find out how to subscribe to the show and also connect with me on social media. That is pretty much it. I think that gives you an idea of what's here and where maybe things have moved around, why, for example, the categories disappeared, the archives issue we're trying to resolve. So MacVoices is trying to move into the future, and we want to do more. So if you have comments, reactions, thoughts, recommendations, I would love to hear them. So as I said before, you can use the contact page, or you can drop me an email directly at chuck@macvoices.com, or contact me on any one of the social medias. That would be great as well. I try to monitor everything as I'm posting things, so usually those don't get by me either. But email is still the lingua franca of communication at the moment. That's the Mac Voices briefing on the new Mac Voices website. I hope you'll take advantage of it and enjoy it. I'll be back with more soon. As always, thanks for watching. Visit MacVoices.com for show notes and to connect with Chuck on social media. Get involved in our Facebook group or like our Facebook page, and get more out of your Apple tech with Mac Voices Magazine, free on Flipboard and on the web. And if you find value in it all, consider supporting us through either our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/MacVoices or by making a one-time donation via the PayPal link on our front page and in the show notes of each episode. You will join these fine people who help bring you Mac Voices. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CacheFly at cachefly.com.